Hi. So in the previous session, we worked on this pattern, right? So that's the pattern we worked upon. Now we want to work on a little different pattern. So we want to work on this pattern, right? This is the pattern that we want to work on. We have already seen a pattern, like we have already seen patterns like these. I'm sure you will be able to write code for this pattern, but that's not what we want. We kind of want a mirror image of this, right? So here, this is the pattern that we are looking at. This is the pattern we are focusing on. Now, let's try to answer our three questions. First of all, how many rows? N rows. How many columns in the ith row? Now, if you look closely, let's look at the second row. How can I get this second row? If I print only 2 stars, these 2 stars will not come here. They will come here and here, right? Whenever you want to print something, if this is my console, if I print something, it will print in the leftmost corner. So if I want to print 2 stars, it will print it like this. But what I actually want is it should keep some gap, then it should print these 2 spaces. So what I'm trying to say, the second row does not have 2 columns, it actually has 4 columns. Out of that, 2 columns are spaces and 2 columns are stars. This is the first example of a pattern where in a particular row, when you're printing something, there is some part which is printing something else and there is another part where you need something else. Here in the first part I need spaces, in the second part I need stars. Okay, so it's a little different from what we have seen so far. So far what used to happen is there was an outer loop, there was an inner loop. In the inner loop we were printing all the columns that were required for that particular row. What I'm suggesting now is we will have an outer loop which will be for rows, but within that, when you are thinking of ith row does not consist of only spaces or only stars or only numbers. We need some spaces and some stars. So I think for the ith row we will need a while loop which will print spaces, and we will need another while loop which will be for stars. Okay, so there will be an outer loop for running through all the rows. When you're trying to print a particular row, I think it might not be enough for us to have just one loop. We will need 2 loops here. The first loop will write spaces, the second loop will write stars. That's one thing that we really need to understand here. Okay? First of all, if I want to print stars and I print just stars, it will come on the left side. It will not come on the right side. If you want it to be on the right side, you need to first put some spaces. So it looks like there is a gap, but that gap actually you need to fill by putting spaces. Okay, so let's again look at this pattern, right? So that's the pattern that we want. So effectively the first row has 3 spaces and 1 star, the second row has 2 spaces and 2 stars, the third row has 1 space and 3 stars, the fourth row has 4 stars, right? So if you look at it, ith row I think has I stars. First row has 1 star, second row has 2 stars, third row has 3 stars, fourth row has 4 stars. And the sum of spaces and stars in each of the row is 4. 3 plus 1 4, 2 plus 2 4, 3 plus 1 4. So each row has number of spaces plus stars equal to n. So that basically means number of spaces is equal to n minus I. Right? You have I stars, total is n, so n minus I spaces. So my code will look something like this. I will have a loop for rows. Within this, I will have a loop for spaces where I will print space. Then I have another loop which will be for stars, and that will go till I, and I'll print stars here. That's the structure of the code that I will have to write here. Okay, using this structure we will be able to get the pattern that we are looking for. Clear? So basically n rows, each row some spaces, some stars. How many spaces? N minus I spaces. How many stars? I stars. That's it. So outer loop, within that outer loop, now you're worried about ith row. So first some spaces, then some stars. So a loop for spaces and a loop for stars. Okay, perfect. Let's write code. So I'm going to copy this, paste. Let me quickly clean this up a little. So let's get rid of all of this in between, right? So very simple loop for going through all the rows. Now, when I am inside this loop, I'm worried about the ith row. In the ith row, I need to have spaces. How many spaces? While spaces less than equal to n minus I. How did we reach n minus I? We saw that each row has I stars and the total of stars and spaces is n, so the number of spaces has to be n minus I. What do we need to do? We need to print a space without a new line. So we print a space, we do spaces is equals to spaces plus 1, right? So we have a loop for spaces. Similarly, we need stars. While the stars are less than equal to I, we need to keep printing star. Same logic, no new line, but a star. Stars is equals to stars plus 1. This will basically give you everything that you need. Ith row, number of spaces, number of stars. Once you're done with all of that, you print a new line and you move to the next row. Right? Let's quickly dry run. So let's say n is 3. So the pattern I'm looking for is basically this, right? So 2 spaces and 1 space here. What will happen is I is equals to 1. For I is equals to 1, I'll print 3 minus 1, 2 spaces exactly. After printing these 2 spaces, I'll print I is 1, so I'll print only 1 star. Once I'm done with that star, I'll come to the next line. When I come to the next line, I becomes 2. For I is equals to 2, I'm going to print 3 minus 2, 1 space. And how many stars? I stars, that is 2 stars. When I come to the next row, how many spaces? I is 3. So 3 minus 3 is 0. So I'll print 0 spaces and I'll print 3 stars because I is 3. And that's exactly what I wanted. That's exactly what I need, right? So let's run this. Okay, and that's exactly what we needed. So this is the pattern we were looking for. So it's putting 3 spaces here, 2 spaces here, 1 space here, and that's the pattern that we were looking for. Okay, so this was the first example where we had within one row some data, then some other kind of data. We will look at examples where we'll have 3 kind of data as well. So that's absolutely fine. That's nothing to worry about. We just need to figure out what exactly ith row is consisting of. If it contains some spaces, some numbers, that's okay. We can take care of that, right? We need to understand the pattern very clearly. Once you do that, things will be very straightforward. Okay, thank you.